Hey everyone, this is Bill from Rad Sports Analytics and collegefootballdata.com. Real excited today to walk you through a product I'm launching called the CFBD AI Builder Pack. If you're familiar with any of my prior pack releases, such as the Starter Pack, the Model Training Pack, the AI Launchpad, this pack is at a whole other level. This is probably the most advanced pack I've released. If you're working with AI tools and AI-assisted workflows or interested in working with those types of tools, working with things like Claude Code, Codex, ChatGPT, Copilot, Cursor, etc. This is the pack for you, and I'm really excited to dig in and show you what all is included. So let's take a look. Here we're in VS Code, and we have the contents of the pack open. You purchase the pack, you'll get a zip file for download, and this is the contents of that zip file. We have all sorts of things here. We have some, documentation. Start here, we'll get to in a sec. We have an assortment of checklists to assist you in your AI-assisted flows. We have a handful of context files to assist your AI agents, as you're doing your AI workflows. For a lot of the standard tools, as well as some generic context files. We have several different guides, whether you are starting a fresh new project using AI-assisted tooling, or if you're looking to apply it to, you have a CFBD project you're already working on and you want to start using AI tooling on. We have a helpful open API context generator. This will take whatever the latest version is, the CFBD API. API is always changing, always new versions coming out, new endpoints being added or changed. This will generate context on whatever the latest version is of the API so that your AI has the most up-to-date context that you're working with. We have a whole set of prompts for things ranging from project discovery to help you, kind of formulate that initial idea, moving into things like endpoint and data contract, help you take that idea, begin to plan it out into a plan, and then, vertical slice implementation. You have a plan already developed with your AI tooling. Go ahead and then going ahead and setting your AI tool to start implementing on that plan, as well as a bunch of other helpful prompts here. We also have a few skills. These, align with some of the prompts, and if you want to instead install a skill that you can call and reuse, those are available with skill files. Have a few reference projects. So these take the templated projects we'll look at in a sec, and these show what the end state is. You take one of these template projects, specifically the Python template, you run some of these AI assisted workflows on them. Gives you an example of what you could see. One is an example of a data snapshot pipeline. Another is of a team season report. And then starters. There's a starter here for Python, a starter here for TypeScript. This is a very Python-centric pack, but there is a TypeScript example here if you're working more so in TypeScript. But these include a lot of the bare bones files that you need just to get started with your AI-assisted workflows and building apps on the CFBD platform, as well as some starter context files for your agent to hook into. And lastly, there's a series of templates to help you in your AI agent as you're building your plans, starting your development plans, help guide you on your implementation plan, a template for like a project brief, all that sort of thing. So let's look at the start here. This is the entry point to the pack. Markdown, I'm going to open it in Markdown Preview. This just kind of walks you through, number one, there's a checklist here. Just make sure you're familiar with some concepts before you dive in. Are you comfortable running Python or Node? Are you comfortable with environments, JSON APIs, all that sort of thing? If not, I would recommend taking a step back, checking out the API Launchpad, AI API Launchpad pack. Then choosing your path. Do you want to start a brand new project? In which case, continue along with this guide. If you have an existing notebook, script, package, pipeline, or app that you want to apply AI to or start using AI tools with, there are some guides it directs you to check out instead. The rest of the start here just walks you through taking the Python template and using it to start a brand new project using AI tooling. And we'll demo some of that here in a sec. But it walks you through the prompts, kind of the intended prompt workflow. The intent is you copy the project, the template over, you copy in some context files, and then there's a series of prompts to run. So the basic workflow is you use the AI tooling to generate a project brief of what you're trying to do. Once you have that brief in place, you go into a planning phase where you'll have the AI tool assist you in generating an endpoint inventory of which endpoints you're planning to hit, data contract, what the expected data is going to look like. And then once you have all of that in place, your project brief, some of your planning documents, walks you through running the next prompt, which is around vertical slice implementation. So taking all of that planning and that project brief and implementing, a single vertical slice in the code. Also walks through steps for troubleshooting and whatnot as well. So let's go ahead and demonstrate the basic workflow. I'm going to come into here. I'm going to grab the Python template. I'm just going to copy it. And I'm going to rename it my CFBD project. I'm going to copy some files in here. I'm going to take this whole context folder with all of this context meant to guide your AI tools, and I am going to copy that into the project. These context files also, and some of the prompts reference some of these useful template files like a data contract template, project brief template. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to copy this folder in here as well. So what I did, I made a copy of the Python pack. I renamed it, and then I copied in the AI context files and some of these helper template files. I'm going to go ahead and open up the README. This has all the setup instructions that you need. Walks you through getting a virtual environment set up, installing dependencies, running some tests, as well as just running some of the boilerplate scripts that are here. So I'm going to go ahead and do that real quick. So you can see here, I have everything set up. I've initiated a Python virtual environment. I've installed the Python dependencies and run the tests. I'm working here in CLI. That's sort of where my comfort zone is and how I like to work. You can certainly do this, inside of your IDE of choice, VS Code, or whatever you have. The rest of this README walks through more information on directory structure and some other areas here. I'm going to go back to this the root level start here document. This has some of the same steps, getting the starter copied, renamed, and everything set up. After doing that, it recommends running just this simple prompt just to get an idea. Have your AI tool recommend something to do. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to copy this. So I have my terminal open. I'm in that my CFBD project root directory, and I'm running Codex, ChatGPT Codex. That's my AI tool of choice. Feel free to open whatever you have, whether that's Claude, Cursor, what have you. I'm going to go ahead and paste in the prompt suggested by the README. This is just telling the tool to read through the project README and the instruction files. Don't edit anything. You can have it go through, explain what it sees, and then it's going to come back and give some recommendation on what to do next. So let's go ahead and run that. Okay, so fast forward, that prompt has run and we see the output here. The AI tool has gone through, it has given me a summary of what it discovered about the project and the boilerplate, and it's come back with some recommendations on what things to do. If you're running this, yours might come back with something completely different. That's the beauty of this. So it's given us 3 suggested options. First is creating some sort of schedule or results digest out of the starter. Another is some sort of single game card, and looks like the third recommendation it had was some sort of fixture quality profile. But it's recommending option 1. That's what we're going to go with. We're going to tell the AI tool that we want to go ahead with option 1. Telling it I want to go ahead and implement this or explore this schedule results digest. And I'm going to go ahead and, after this, paste in the project discovery prompt from here in the pack. So I'm going to paste that. I'm going to run it, and then we'll get back to you in a sec. So that prompt has finished running, and it's come back to us with some questions. So all these prompts are designed in this manner. Paste in the prompt does some initial thinking, and then has some inputs that it's really expecting. It'll come back to you with, if it doesn't have the context or the information it needs. So here it has 3 questions for us. I'm going to tell it just to use its recommendations because it's recommended some options, and I'm just going to go ahead and run. So that has finished running, and as you can see, it has output a pretty comprehensive project brief for us. This is quite a bit to read here in the CLI. I'm going to tell it to go ahead and write this to a markdown file. And I think that's generally good practice with many of these prompts in the pack. A lot of the ones that have kind of standardized outputs like this always have them output to a markdown file so you can reference it later or in between sessions. And here is that project brief it generated, much easier to read here in the IDE. And again, this is a pretty standard template used by the pack. It uses this project brief template included here, and when it filled this in. So it states the goal, the audience, output, success criteria, what endpoints from the CFBD API and official Python client it thinks it'll need, parameters, expected responses, data contracts, estimated call pattern, validation plan, etc., as well as some risks. Going back to the start here document, there's a couple more prompts to run. The next prompt would be this endpoint data contract prompt that will basically build off of this project brief, take an inventory of the endpoints as well as the data contract. And then the next step from there would be actual implementation, having the AI tool go ahead and implement this brief with the specified data contract and endpoint inventory. Now, this is a pretty simplistic use case. You don't necessarily need to run this intermediary prompt, this endpoint data contract prompt. You could just jump straight to this vertical slice implementation prompt. For something much more complex, you're probably going to want to go through each of these. I'm going to run each of these and skip ahead and show you the final output. So that endpoint and data contract prompt has run, and it has given me 2 new artifacts here in my initial project. So here is the endpoint inventory, what the output of that looks like. Taking an inventory of all the different API calls it's going to be making to the CFBD API. I think this is a really important step. One thing I see a lot of people run into is the code generated by their AI tooling can sometimes run rampant and eat up a lot of their monthly API calls. Certainly like to help you avoid that and save your money. Neat thing about this pack, this endpoint inventory is just one tool you can use to plan out your calls, but also the way this starter project is set up, it has caching built in. So you can run and do like a dry run of anything that's generated here, and it'll just tell you if the code works. And then you can do a live run, and it'll do a live run. So the dry run would be for more testing. Then you can do a dry run ready to hit the live API and make some live API calls and start and consume some of the API, your monthly limit. Say you have already called that endpoint with those parameters, it'll cache that so that the next time it reruns that same workflow, like let's say in this case, we're grabbing a list of Michigan games from 2023. If it's run that once before, it'll know that and it will just grab that from cache rather than consuming another API request. So again, I think that's a really nice bonus feature of this Buillder pack and some of the starter projects here, is that you get a lot of these things that make your workflow more efficient. But anyway, let's look at this endpoint inventory. It went in, did some documentation, gave you some estimated calls, how many calls it estimates it'll consume per run. Right here it's saying for this, it's going to do one call. It says at most one because there is the possibility, like I mentioned, if you're making repeated calls, you might hit the cache and it might not consume any calls if you've already made that call. Let's look at the data contract that it generated. So yeah, just building off of that endpoint inventory, the data that it's getting back, the data it requires, and the data it is going to need to use and transform and validate. So a nice little report there. So now we're at the point we can go ahead and start implementing this. To do so, I'm going to take that vertical slice implementation prompt. I'm going to paste it into my same AI session, and I will fast forward to that. See you in a sec. So the implementation prompt has already run. It's done some implementation. One thing I overlooked in the project brief, this is why you should read those briefs carefully. The scope of the project was narrowly static to 2023 Michigan schedule and results. Generated some good code, a good starting point, but that's really not good enough. I want to be able to give it a dynamic team and year and generate a schedule markdown based off of that. So I've replied back and I've told my agent that, hey, I would like to build off of this, iterate, and allow me to provide a dynamic team in here. So I'm going to let this run. We'll fast forward to when this is completed. So that finished. It went ahead. It implemented my requested changes, allowing me to supply dynamic team and year parameter. Let's go ahead and see what all it generated. I put Git tracking on this repo. By the way, if you're working with any kind of AI tool, it is an essential. It is a must have some sort of source control. Highly recommend using Git just so you can track what the AI is doing. It gives you that version control, lets you roll things back, go back into a point in time if you need to. Highly, highly important. But yeah, we're going to come in here. We're going to see what the agent did. It updated my brief, which again, as I mentioned, it initially had this very narrow and static to Michigan 2023, which is not going to be much use to anyone if it could only pull 1 year and one team. So updated it along these new requirements for a dynamic team and year. And we can come in here and we can see, the changes it made, generated some new scripts around grabbing a schedule, generating the schedule, some tests. Looks like it made some updates to the README. Let's check those out. Sure did. Added an entry to show us how to run this new schedule digest script. Notes that we need to set our CFBD API key. I'm going to copy this command. Before I run it, I want to point out starter project here has a .env example of some of the recommended environment variables you need to set. The guide walks you through this, but you need to copy this as just a regular .env and paste your CFBD API key in here, just to make sure you do not show anyone your key or have that public anywhere or feed it directly into your agent. I have mine set. I'm going to go back to my command line and I'm going to run this. It's already grabbed Michigan 2023, so I'm going to grab another team in another year. Let's try Indiana 2025 and see what it does. That was pretty quick. Yeah, it said Indiana was not in the cache, so it made a live request and it found 13 games for Indiana in 2025. Let's run it again, see what it does. Ran it again, and cool thing here, as we would expect, it did not make a live request. It had the API request already cached, and it just built off of that. So as I was mentioning earlier in the video. Let's go back. There's an outputs folder. We can see what it output. So it gave us Indiana's 2025 schedule in a markdown format. So this is the basic workflow for the AI Builder pack. This is just a very simplistic example, sort of showcasing and walking you through how everything works. You're going to have much more complex examples. You know, where the power of this is you're doing a lot more complex things, much more complex data querying against the API, more complex queries, joining data together, connecting it to your own database, outputting it not just to a markdown file, but maybe building a web app around it, or some other nicer graphic. That's where the real power of this thing is going to come. And you have a lot more of these more complex use cases, but wanted to showcase this with a more simplistic use case, kind of give you an idea of what you can get out of this AI Builder pack. It is available for sale on Gumroad today for a promotional price of $49. I'll drop the link here in the video description. Highly recommend checking it out and let me know what you think. And if you build anything cool with it, I love seeing the things people are building with the platform. If you end up using the pack to build anything, I would love to see what you do with it. So let me know what you think if you end up picking this up, and let me know what you do with it. I would love to see it.